Thank you, Your Honor. What you have before you is a request from Sojourners Alliance for assistance in their transitional housing program. This matter was before, excuse me, Public Works Finance on June 27th. At that time, Steve Bonner, who's with us tonight, the Executive Director of Sojourners Alliance, approached the committee with a request for funding. Wasn't really a concrete request at that time. The committee wanted to have additional information so that the council had as complete a picture as possible regarding Sojourners' request. Assistant City Supervisor Jen Piffner and I and Mayor Lambert was there for part of the discussion, met with Steve Bonner, talked to him about the program, about the funding. As the council had indicated, committee indicated, they wanted additional information as to what programs Sojourners was involved with, what programs were continuing, and what programs were being threatened. So if you look, there is a memo that Jen authored based upon our interview with Steve and notes that we took at that time. I will leave Steve to talk about the particulars, but suffice it to say that there are two very separate programs as part of Sojourners. The transitional housing is one of the one that is being threatened at this time. Steve has a plan, and if you've read the memo, then you know what the outline of that plan is. The proposal tonight and the request, and there is part of the memo that is incorrect, and that is the calculation where it requests $15,000 of support from the City Council and $15,000 of support from Latah County. That request at Mr. Bonner's direction is $12,500. Steve will tell you that Latah County has been supportive of their efforts and at least preliminarily is proposing something in that same amount, $12,500. Very worthwhile program. Sojourners has been around for a long time providing services to the community. As far as a funding source for this proposal, as you know, the council has never directly supported Sojourners Alliance. Has in their operational funding, they have supported them in some of their capital projects, repairs, waiving fees, those, but not personnel operations or costs of those operations. So, should the council desire to assist, the recommendation that staff has placed in the request is an amount of money from the council's non-prioritized projects or legislative reserve, as it's commonly called. This is $25,000 that was allocated in the FY 2016 budget. That is intended for those things that come through during the year that the council had neither anticipated nor had budgeted for. So it's the council's discretionary fund. So there is sufficient funding in there. No funds have been expended from that $25,000 allocation, and the city staff awaits council's direction, and I'm sure you want to hear from Steve, who I saw come up behind me. So with that, I will turn it over to Steve Bonner.
Welcome, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor Lambert, City Council members. It's good to be back here. I learned a lot the last time I was in front of you, and I hope to have a better presentation for you with the facts that you've already seen. I've already received one commitment for a bed, and I'm kind of denoting it. Commitments are seeking people that are willing to step up and provide support. Once I have the commitments needed, then I would come back to the sources and then ask for those funds so that the funds aren't obligated until I have those commitments. So how I'm coining it is one commitment equals one bed. So if the city provides the $12,500, I'm perceiving that as funding 2 beds for a year. So I've already received one commitment from Health and Welfare and Mental Health. I'm seeking others as we are here today. But we also have a much greater role in this community that is unseen and beyond those papers. We have been instrumental in helping bring about the Family Promise program here into Moscow, as well as the Chaz Clinic. We were instrumental in that, along with several other people. There's some other agencies and programs that we're involved in that would be impacted by us if we're not here. In addition, I will be receiving about $30,000 in rapid rehousing homeless prevention funds in the fall if we're in operation. Those funds would be for families and veterans only. So we, as you all know, our services, but if you don't mind if I bring up one of my employees to give you about 3 minutes of an impact that we have on an organization that's directly impacting our citizens. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. This is Darrell, Program Director for L'Etat Recovery Center.
I think the microphone died. Is it working?
We can hear you, Darrell.
Well, good. You can hear me. Okay. That's really all that well, there it goes. That's really all that matters. So Steve's doing a great job telling you about Sojourners and their basic programs. But what he doesn't highlight and what hasn't been commonly known throughout the community is the incubation that they've done for other local nonprofits. Mine is, of course, a prime example. I work for the L'Etat Recovery Center, which is a branch of Sojourners Alliance. And what you need to know is the reason why the Recovery Center got located here is there's really two reasons. And I was working at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare at the time, so I know exactly how it was decided where they were going to. They gave me a call and said, we want to place a recovery center, or at least try and place a recovery center somewhere in central Idaho, north central Idaho. So we talked about 3 possible locations. We looked at Orofino, Lewiston, and of course Moscow. We quickly took Orofino off the list. It's just a little bit too small. But we went back and forth quite a bit between Lewiston and Moscow because Lewiston is bigger. It's got a great deal of need for a recovery center. But we settled on Moscow for 2 very simple reasons. Number one, Moscow had L'Etat County Commissioner Tom Stroshine, who had seen the model we were following over in Connecticut, and he came back and he was very excited. The second reason, though, was Sojourners Alliance. Sojourners, I don't know if you guys realize this, but I realized it as I worked at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. It's highly unusual for a community the size of Moscow to have such a good organization as Sojourners Alliance working with the issues they work with. I can't think of another one in the state. And that became so clear to me as I worked at Health and Welfare, because every time I talked to somebody from throughout the state, they knew about Sojourners Alliance, this little nonprofit in Moscow, Idaho. I'd be talking to Boise, they know about it. I'd be talking about Idaho Falls, they knew about it. Steve's a leader. He's pretty quiet about that. He is the head of the, what is it, the Idaho Housing Commission? No, not Housing, Homelessness Commission. Board member now. He was at the head. He's well known. The organization is well respected. So that was the 2 reasons why we were able to land the L'Etat Recovery Center for Moscow. And the support of Sojourners couldn't have been more important to us. So I'm not going to go on because there's a lot of things for you guys to talk about. But we've analyzed what would happen if we didn't have Sojourners support incubating us, as we've been terming it. And it would cost our budget approximately $25,000 to $30,000 more. That would be the difference between us being able to continue to function and not, most likely. We'd at the very least have to do a hell of a lot more fundraising, because that's about 20, 25% of our budget that we save by being able to affiliate with Sojourners Alliance. So please do factor all that in, factor in how well known Sojourners is and how well respected, most importantly, they are throughout the state. They're a great thing for Moscow, and they do great things. Now, they incubate us, the L'Etat Recovery Center. They also have been instrumental in starting, what was it, Family Promise? Family Together. Family Promise. I always get those 2 mixed up. They were instrumental in getting Family Promise started. They also work with, I think it's called the Palouse Education Consortium, that brings conferences every year, psychologically related, mental health related. And they're also incubating another recovery center, the one that got put in Lewiston, because remember I told you Lewiston was a strong competition for us. So year 2, Lewiston put out another attempt at doing that. And they also are incubating Lewiston in order to help them get started along the same lines as us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you for listening to my former board president, actually. We also house Moscow Affordable Housing Trust in our office. We're in-kind donation. They use our office space and support staff, et cetera. So our role in our community is much broader and much more complex than just providing housing for the homeless. Though I see the need, and there's folks in the audience here that would attest to it, but just in being considered to support us this one time as a commitment towards our being able to provide services, I will be able to take that in hand to other businesses, organizations, city councils, et cetera, to say, I have our city and our county stepping up that want to support us. Can you help us as well? So that's about all I can babble on.
Questions for Steve? Walter?
Steve, I noticed in some of the data that was put together that you currently have one family unit that's unavailable due to extensive damage.
Correct.
Does your map forward take into account putting that back online, leaving it offline? What's the story?
The plan is to get that back online.
And the funds to do that?
Well, I actually, so we are going to be generating $1,000 a month from the Nez Perce Recovery Center for our oversight. And taking into consideration the extra funds that we get from, not a whole lot, from the Latah Recovery Center, that I believe that we would have the funds. See, the shortfall that I'm asking for, presenting to the community is $125,000, actually what would be close to what inflation would be from the original $100,000 10 years ago. And by having that, the goal of $125,000 does free up more money, so I could get that rehabbed, fixed up, and repaired, and have housing in that.
So it's part of your plan?
Yeah, exactly.
And if I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Wallace.
In the potential for reaching shortfall list that we've got where you're going to get all the other money to do this, you've got an item called probation proposed, parole on-site guaranteed beds. What is that cash? Is that, what is that? And you got $41,000 down.
So that has not come to fruition yet. What's behind that is that we typically at any given time, about a quarter of our population are from probation and parole, as it is. And if they're housing folks with us, is to see if then they would support us. And they reached out to me originally about taking their folks into our housing program, fill up all of our beds. I'm not interested in filling all of our beds with that, but if my averages have been about a quarter of my population, I might as well see about tapping into those funds anyway.
So just to finish that, so up to date, you've taken their people, but not been paid for doing it.
Correct.
Under this proposal, you would take their people and be paid for doing it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Gina?
This might be a silly question, Steve, so hang with me. There is a closure planned from, looks like September to October 31st of this year?
Yes, we're calling it hibernation.
Hibernation.
Yes.
Okay, there's hibernation. What happens to the people involved?
There won't be any people on site. They all will be gone by then.
Okay.
And then the
Okay.
folks I have off-site in my housing program, because it's a housing first model, they reach out when they want help. And so I'll be coming in the office every 2 weeks to do payroll, et cetera, and also meet with those folks. But so we're going into hibernation, reducing our expenses, cost, et cetera, in hopes that we can line up more of the commitments. And then the goal is to reopen November 1st for full capacity again.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Walter?
If no one has anything else at the moment, Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve a one-time funding commitment of $12,500 to Sojourners Alliance to be funded upon evidence that they have reached the difference between $125,000 and our $12,500.
Second.
And just to elaborate, that be in the form of a letter or whatever form you need with a gold seal if we have to prove to other potential donators that we're committed to doing it as soon as he can get the full package together.
Lori, did you get the contingencies that Walter put on the motion?
It wasn't really a contingency, it was
Yes,
just to make the point.
Well, no, it's a contingency. So did you get it the way he said it, or do you need it more clear? Pardon me? Does everybody understand that motion? Okay, I'll start with John.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I want to thank you for putting the information together, and
Aye.
Okay. There you have it.
Thank you very much. I
Steve, for
appreciate the
presentation.
support.